just have multiple plates spinning. And if you can have more than one thing going that you care about, then it doesn't hurt when one thing goes down, because at least there's something else that has some momentum. You know what I mean? So
you want to actually almost find the opposite sometimes. I always find that as much as a person is this, they are also this to the same degree in the opposite direction. And in doing that, then you create a three-dimensional person.
One day I'm sitting at the hotel telling people, hey, I want to act and I'm going to move to LA. And they're sitting there like, John, you've been saying you're going to LA for 2 years. Like, come on, man, we'll believe it when we see it. And then, the day comes and I'm like, all right, Friday's my last day. I'm moving to LA, and I made the jump. It was scary, but I had to do it. And once I got here, it was just foot to the pedal.
You have to love watching movies to be working in film, in the movies. And I think that was always the first and foremost thing, that you saw something and you went, how did they do that? And then in your enthusiasm to figure that out or find that out, you wanted to be able to accumulate a kind of arsenal of knowledge that you would then use, and you sort of by trial and error you just went forward, and then eventually hopefully you kind of find your own voice.
Once you decide that you're an artist and you're living the life of an artist, that's the thing. Keep working towards that. Keep hustling. Every day is you can call it the grind, but I don't know if it's the grind. I think it's just the life. I think it just is what you do.
The idea of being a TV writer or any kind of writer seems so crazy and so out there that like people would laugh at me. My parents were like, what are you talking about? You're going to be like a graphic design guy, maybe, or whatever. You're never going to leave the state. But once you get out there, it's not that different than anything else. It's just a job, So it's like, that was where I realized, I can do this. You just have to kind of put it on the line a little bit. And after New York, after that internship ended, I just packed all my shit in my car and drove to LA with, I think, $1,000 to my name. I rented a little tiny windowless apartment and I bought a mattress at a garage sale and just went for it.
When I'm learning my lines, I learn them, but I don't set how I'm going to do them. I think about what I'm trying to do. And then when I meet that person, I go, well, how am I going to try to do that to that person, that specific person? And that's why I rehearse my lines in many different ways. And I like to rehearse them on the elliptical or when I'm walking, because I need to get the lines in my body. How many times have we all laid in bed and think, oh yeah, I know these lines for tomorrow. And then you get up and you start walking around and breathing. And it's like, I guess I don't know these lines, I mean, you got to get them in your body.
It's the AD's job to disseminate information, disseminate the director's wishes to the rest of the crew, and mainly to facilitate the crew, because the crew are the people that are making the movies, and AD is watching them make the movie. And a lot of ADs make that mistake. I always tell my second assistants when they're coming along that you have to remember that you're there to help. You're not making the movie.
You definitely develop a tough skin. It's earned and it's learned. But I will tell you, casting directors, their job is to get the best person for the part. And oftentimes, that has nothing to do with you. Oftentimes.
We made it with what we had that was available. So it was, it was $6,000. It was an incredibly small cast. We had, one camera that was a 16 mil. We did it in black and white because we didn't really have that many lights or any lights to be able to do it. We used a lot of natural light. So the film noir sort of style of thriller really worked with that, because we're using natural light, because we didn't have that many lights. So we couldn't really film it in color because we're never going to be able to get the same effects week in, week out over that long, because we didn't have the lights. So, your outside light was always going to be changing. That's going to affect the color temperature.
But the biggest part of it was a writer writes, so as long as you're writing, I was writing. So it's like, if you have a script and you have something you're proud of, all you got to do is put yourself in the position of having somebody to beg to read it.
You have to be loose. You have to be flexible. You have to be in the moment. You have to deal with that person. And you have to be ready to bend and take direction and try things and stand things on their head. And in that, there will be like a fluidity that'll be really delicious.
You know, people say, well, gosh, those method actors, you know, they're really tough. It depends on how they conduct themselves. Some method actors put it on like a jacket right before they step onto the set. They've been preparing off to the side, and that's one way. Like Michael Fox, he'd be in a conversation, we'd roll the camera, he'd step onto his mark and jump into his character, and we'd call cut, and he'd jump out and finish the conversation. He just put it on and off. He was used to it. Then there are people, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, except that it costs a lot of time and energy for people around him. I have never seen anybody assume a role the way Jim Carrey did in Man on the Moon.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Ever. Jim Carrey disappeared in the first week of prep and came back at the wrap party. No kidding.
What have you done in the last 6 months? What have you done in the last year? You know, what have you done in the last couple of years? Like, nothing happens overnight. It's going to take time. It takes hard work.
Again, if you're a lover of words like I am, and you know the power of words, because see, words set your emotion. They set your tone. You know, if somebody's telling you a story, that story can either make you sad or it can make you happy, depending on what verbiage or what words they use, or even the, you know, how they set it up.
I think my advice is kind of finish the game, because it feels like a lot of people write and then they just give up, you know, or and a lot of it comes in two sequences. One, they give up on the actual script they wrote because it doesn't go anywhere. But that's fine. Then you write another script. You know what I mean? It's like they get to that first thing and they're like, I wrote this movie, or I wrote this short, and I made it, or I didn't make it. And just nothing happened. So fuck it. You know, this town is broken, or you know, I'm not. Then you just got to keep doing it. You know, that's the one version. The other version is they just don't even finish the script. You know, and those people, like, if you're not hungry, if you can't get the obstacles out of your way, you're never going to make it out here.
One of the great things that film school allows is for you, with no worries, to just make films, to shoot films, to edit films, to direct film. You know, film is generally a very expensive thing to just up and do, and if you're lucky enough to be in film school, it's a place where there's no danger, there's no repercussions. You can make mistakes. In fact, that's the place to make mistakes, because in the real world you're not really allowed to. So I guess the blessing of school, of film school, was to be able to just get out there and do it.
I always want to emphasize that you have to love the craft, you know. I mean, I think a lot of young people get into the business because they think it's going to be exciting, or it's going to be sexy, or you're going to make a lot of money, or you're going to be famous. And all those things are possible. But the thing is, you have to love the thing itself. And you have to do the work, because the readiness is all, you know, there's so much emphasis for the younger people with the social media and looking a certain way and having this many likes and that and this, and there's all that, and that's all great. And I wish I was better at it, because I don't know how to do any of it. Obviously that would help me. But I sometimes think it's like we're missing, you know, the forest for the trees. It's like the craft. You have to know what you're doing. As Hamlet would say, the readiness is all. You get this opportunity, you get on a set and you don't know what you're doing, then you've lost your opportunity. You know, there's only one time to make a first impression, as they say. Yeah. And you want to, I mean, you wouldn't go out and play the violin without practicing, right? So why do people think that they can just be an actor because they have a resume photo?
The ratio of, you know, bookings to denials is it's pretty big. I mean, that's the name of the game. You go out for 10 projects, you get one, and that's the reality. And a lot of people don't see that.
Even if you have the most supportive family, there's, like, when I said I'm going to go do stand-up comedy, like, after college, they're like, it was supportive concern. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, well, you're running into a fire that is hot, sir.
A true artist, as you're saying, there's passion and there's form. If you just have all passion, and you have no form, it's not art. If you just have form but no passion in it, that's not so good either. It's together, but it's work. It's work.
It's really about absorbing that failure. And I failed over and over. And even when it seemed like you get a little traction and like, oh, people like this script, then it dies. And you literally have to write another one.
There's no substitute to doing. There's a lot. You can spend a lot of time talking about stuff, but you really just have to hunker down and do it. And that's often difficult. That's easier said than done, because who's going to give you that chance? But nowadays with iPhones and whatnot, everyone can be a filmmaker, and someone who really is driven to do it should just do it.
I remember when I was younger, I'd go into rehearsal and go, yeah, well, I'm going to kind of do it something like this. No, I use every second of rehearsal, because I know that 2 weeks into the run, I'm going to still be finding new things. And had I been working 110% at the get-go, I'd be that much further along into the complexity or the depth of something. There's never enough time. And there's, it's like there's this old funny story about a Russian director. You know, in Russia, they take a year to rehearse some play. That's how they do it. They just rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. So the Russian director comes over to America, and the producer says, well, how many weeks of rehearsal do you need? And he says, I would like 6 months of rehearsal. And the producer says, oh my God, I can't afford that. I can't pay for 6 months. And the Russian says, okay, 2 weeks. I mean, you use as much time as you have. Right. You know, you got to do what you got to do. And with film and TV, you got to do a lot on your own before you get to the day, because you got a lot of people counting on you, and there's a lot of money like hemorrhaging. And if you don't know your lines, hello.
With the audition process, right? No matter what the magnitude of the project is, no matter like how good you do on it, it's never personal. The Hollywood industry, it's a business at the end of the day. And that's something that I'm still learning, right? Because there's times I'll go in for an audition and I'll feel like I knocked it out of the park and I killed it. And then I don't get it. And it's like, well, you have to understand there's hundreds to thousands of people auditioning for a part, depending on the size of the role. And then on top of that, you know, they're thinking, you know, let's get these people in the room, see what they can do, and see if we can find the person we're looking for. So that's what it comes down to.
What's that process like? Clearly, it comes from your mind. You put it out, or you just sit there, get to the computer, and go. What is the process like for you to get it going?
You know, I have 3 stages. I have the kind of the brainstorming stage, which is first, where you just get a legal pad and you come up with a basic shape and ideas, and you just kind of, it's just purely open thought, right? Like if you come up with a line of dialogue that makes you laugh, you write it down. If you come up with a character and like some eccentric thing or just something that's random, it's just purely brainstorming, no limits. Then from that, I go to the next phase, which is an outline, and I come up with the shape. And that truly is, it's kind of the most important step, because if you don't have the shape of the story, if you don't know where you're ending, that's where you can hit, you know, a wall when you're in the 3rd stage, which is writing. If you don't know where you're going, and it's amazing how many people just say, I'm going to write the script, I have an idea, you know, it's going to be about 2 guys hosting a podcast, and they just start writing, and then you get to the middle and you don't know where you go, and then you just bail. Like, it's just, you're like, you know what I mean? But if you know where it's going to end, if you know that last moment, that last scene, you make yourself get there, because you're so excited to kind of close up the draft. Yeah, so that's my process. A lot of people have different processes, but that's definitely how I do it.
So at any moment, that's the thing, you know, as they say in the business, you can't make a living, but you can make a killing.
I think every director is able to come up with something on the fly and make it look pretty loose. It isn't that they haven't thought about it; they always do, but they can make it seem as though they've just thought this up. Hey, you know, let's just run over here and do this kind of thing. But you'll find out later they'd actually thought about it a lot. You can't go into, I don't think you can go into a film and not have a fairly good idea of how you want it to go, even if it keeps you up all night. You know, I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning on Absence and Malice in this tall building I was in Miami, and I looked down and I could see into Sidney Pollack's apartment. He was up typing the rewrites for the next morning, you know, and that's kind of how it goes with these guys.
Sometimes it's just not the right vision that the casting director has, or the director has, or the producer has. And sometimes it's not on you. And what is on you is for you to do the best job that you can, because they will remember you for the next one. Guess what? They brought me in next for fucking years, and guess what? I fucking booked it.
When you're doing really low budget stuff, it's really difficult to make guns look realistic because they are always filled in at the end. Every time you point one or wave one around, it looks like it's plastic. It doesn't look real. They don't make the right sort of sound. You don't get the sort of right reaction when you want to go when they go off. Mm-hmm. So use something else. So Chris uses a hammer for the main weapon in following because that's readily available and it's cheap, and you can make a rubber one that looks really realistic.
And your life can change, and I think that's the seduction of acting too, is that you know that at any moment the right role that suits you perfectly could come along, and you could shine in a way that'll make you stand out.
It's a weird thing. There's so much pressure, but it takes so much effort to direct, as you guys know. There's so many things happening at once that you don't have time to freak out. You just have to go into the mode. I think like the best director advice I ever give is just like make a decision, even if it might be wrong, and then later say, oh yeah, I was wrong. Like that's better than being indecisive in the moment. So there was a lot of that where I'm like, I have no idea, but I'm going to tell you the answer to the question. Like, I know I'm right. And so it's like, you don't have time to feel it till afterwards. I think when we were wrapped in editing, it's just like, oh, then it's a relief of like, Jesus.
A lot of people will go in there with the, brown nosing mindset. Oh, I'm going to, tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to smile and be friendly. And it's like, yes, be friendly, of course, naturally, but don't put on a fake personality, because the second you walk into the door in an audition process, the interview starts, the audition process starts. They're checking you out head to toe the second that door opens. So they already know off of your energy as a person, they already know, do we want to work with this person?
You plod along and you try to stay, employed, and you try to stay hooked in. And when you're not doing something, go see your friends in work, go watch work, analyze why you like their work. What is it about what that person just did that works for you? Are you capable of doing that? Analyze it. Be a scientist about it. Break it down. Make it a craft.
Make living the life of an artist a habit. Make it a habit. Make it like, if there are things that you need to do for your craft, if it's play the piano or if it's as an actor or an editor or whatever it is, make it as much of a habit as brushing your teeth at night. You can't go to bed until you brush your teeth. Same thing with this. You have to do your work every day. You have to apply to your craft every day. And whether it's the business side or the artistic side, keep feeding that.
Of all the films that you've worked on and all the amazing talents that you've worked with personally, what's the single best thing that you've learned that you personally could pass on to aspiring filmmakers?
Don't have a rigid mindset. You never stop learning. I never stopped learning for the whole time I was in film. It was just like this gigantic learning curve. That crews, grip, electric, people like that are the backbone of a film, no matter what anybody says. They make a film happen. It's a cool business, and crew people are, to me, what make it cool. They are unbelievable people, most of them. There's no dumb people making films.
When you go into an audition, here's two things. When you don't get it, often it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with so many subjective things, how you match up with somebody else, how they want to go. It really doesn't matter. What's a fascinating thing for young people to do is sit in on auditions and see how that all goes, and start to understand how things work, or how just when you walk through the door, how that can make a difference. And the other thing is, when you're auditioning, do you know how when you audition for something, you're sort of nervous, and then you get the job, and the next day you're at the table read and everybody's your best friend? It's like, everything's cool. Mm-hmm. Well, what was the energetic difference there? So what I was taught a technique where, before your audition, create the sensation in your body of owning the role. Like, how does your body feel when they call you and say, hey, they want you? And breathe that in and create that energy. If you own it, you already own the role. So when you go in, it's yours already. Instead of, do you like me? Do you want me? Do I kind of Mm-hmm. You have it already.
There you go.
And that'll gravitate. that energy will work.
I did something as in training in screen stuff. I'd done a lot of physical theatre, and I was very sort of big and expressive with my body. And I started doing screen things, and I thought, oh, less is more, less is more. And this one director just said, it was a class only, but he just said, you're boring. And it's so I was like going, oh, it's not less is more. You do the same inside. You have to know what camera lens you've got in. If you're miles away from the camera, you can be really big. If you're close up, or lighting thing there, you realize where the camera is. So one of the best tips I got, I think, was have a relationship with a camera operator.
To other people that are aspiring and to kids that are just starting out, something that really, really helped me, and once you can get back into the rooms of the casting rooms, when eventually that'll happen. When I first got out of college, I volunteered to be a reader in audition rooms. And I cannot tell you how invaluable that was. When you're in one of these BFA programs, it's not really something you get to do. What you get to do is you're in a room and you see 500 people come in for the same role. And what it teaches you is, why does that person stand out? Why do they not? And I can't tell you how invaluable it was for me to learn that.
If you're studying with a teacher, sometimes it's a painful experience. I mean, class can be painful because you want to be good, right? And someone's saying, adjust that. And it's it's so uncomfortable and you can't do it right. And you don't want to, or you've got some sort of emotional blocks or something. But if you can keep your ego out of it, and just try. And just when the director says, try this, then try it. And try to keep that ego out of the way, so you have more access to changing and mutating and being that piece of clay. But the ego is a powerful thing. You want to go, no, I'm going to do it my way. Try to stay open.
Filmmakers make films. They go out and they make films with whatever they can. Yeah. And you don't have to wait for funding to come along to be able to get your $2 million project off the ground. We made a film for $6,000 and it got bought and it got distributed.
Yeah, that's the number one thing I will say as far as doing background work and starting out. Use that time, get off Instagram, get off your phone, use that time to stay alert and learn, okay, what's everybody's job description? What are they doing? So that you know how a film set operates if this is an industry you want to be in. That way you're ahead of the game and you really know, okay, this is what's happening.
It just went so quickly because it's so unpredictable. And I think we just got this weird momentum. And then everyone's like, this is not going to not happen. This is not going to not happen. So if you, I think if like 5 or 10 people think something's not going to not happen, that powers through a lot of missing money. And, like if you're low on money, somebody goes and figures it out. You become so weirdly creative. And when you just really need to make this happen.
You're going to have to fight. You're going to have to fight to be sometimes taken seriously. Sometimes you're going to have to fight to be taken funny.
The failures are important. They teach you where you're supposed to go. And whether that's in science or whether that's in dance or whether that's in art or whether it's in sports, those failures are important. That's what shows you the right path to go on. That's how you get better. The getting to the point where you can't get it wrong. Not getting to the point where you can just get it right, but get it where you can't get it wrong, where you're confident in doing it every time. That if I got called tomorrow and they said, we need you to show up on Conan and we need you to do a sketch, I go, cool, I'm there. I'm not nervous about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to go do my job.
That's all you want to do, right? Is get better. You just want to have more ease. You just want to get better. And it never stops. That's the thing. I did a play with Uta Hagen, famous acting teacher for so many people. We did a play together for 9 months. The last performance, she comes off and she says, oh, now I know how to do that moment. I mean, the woman never, ever stopped. This is 9 months of the same play, day in and day out. And she was still discovering something and still working and still finding something. And that's what I mean, the joy of the craft. Some people get a job, they say, You want to see an actor get sad, give them a job or something. It's like they get the job and then they don't actually want to do the job, or they don't actually enjoy the job. Oh my God, to go out on stage every night and be able to play and change it and try something different, and that's fun. It should be fun.
Find us in all these links. It's coming up right now.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.